Today I'm showing you a second modification I've done to my Bellman steamer, milk steamer. So what I've done this time is I've bought one of these little valves. I bought it from eBay. It's called an espresso boiler anti-vacuum valve. It cost $21 Australian, which is about $16 US, and it has a 1/4 inch BSP thread on it. So the idea of the anti-vacuum valve is, as your boiler is heating up, the anti-vacuum valve has this little weighted valve in it which is open while it's heating up. When there's enough steam pressure to whiz past here, it lifts the valve and closes the valve off. So this has the effect of automatically making the first air flush out of the Bellman steamer. I did a mod a little while ago where I suggested that if you cut 4 holes in the side of this little part, it makes it so that when you purge the Bellman as it's heating, which you do by opening this valve while you're heating for the first few minutes, if you have holes in the side, then it makes the air purge out much more easily. This is a second modification, which you should also have the holes anyway, although you probably don't need this many holes. I just tried to see if it would improve having more holes. It didn't really make any difference that I could see. So what I've done is install this valve by drilling a hole in the top, and then this fits inside, and I also had to buy a 1/4 inch BSP lock nut to screw onto the bottom to fix it in place. I also had to buy a fibre washer. So this little bit, which I can't even take off, instead of a rubber washer, this is just something that's better for steam. So it's a fibre washer. I couldn't get the right size very easily from the local hardware shop, so I just got one that had the right outside diameter and just used the same drill that I drilled for this hole to drill the center of it, to expand the center of the fibre washer. So that, when it's all screwed up together, that would fit on the top, and I've made sure that this is rotated to leave the maximum space so that this nut will actually screw on. So it ends up with just enough room to screw on. What I found when I did that was that the valve would act as it's supposed to, but it didn't quite bleed enough of the air out. So then what I did was I got a little spring, which was just pulled out of an old pen, a biro. I just bent the spring into a slightly different shape and put that on there, like so. And now when it's all assembled, this pushes down on the top with a spring, and that has the effect of keeping the valve open slightly longer. When there's enough steam, a good amount of steam, it'll finally be enough to actually overcome the spring and push the valve up and close. So in practice, what this means is when I'm heating it up, the first 3.5 minutes, I can start to see some steam coming out of this little valve. And then for another minute it keeps venting, and then it suddenly just goes click and it lifts up and it stops the steam. So this means I don't need to have this open at all at the start. I just put some water in, fill it up to about here, probably. Put some water in, turn it on, and it's ready to go in 6 minutes. About 7 minutes is when the pressure relief valve would start going. So that actually works really well. Just for comparison, my dual boiler that I've got here, that takes about 3 minutes before it's ready to steam, whereas this is about 6 minutes before it's ready. So it's not too bad. So now I'll show you it working. So here we are, just starting to turn the heat on. You can hear some ticking noises of it heating up. So it's about 3.5 minutes now. You can start to see some steam coming out. So there would have been air coming out before, but it was just not as noticeable. But now you can see little puffs of steam. This should continue for a minute or so, and then it should automatically close. Okay, and now the valve has just closed. So now all of the air has been vented out automatically, and now it should just start heating up. Okay, so the valve is open, the overpressure valve. So we're ready to go. I'll start steaming the milk. Okay. Turn it off. And I'll grab my coffee. Okay, and there we have one espresso. Maybe a little, actually, not quite enough foam, but not too bad. But the main problem with Bellman's was usually too much foam, but this is a little bit under. I should have injected a bit more, but there you have it. So, to recap, this modification of putting a anti-vacuum valve on the Bellman makes the purging fully automatic. So you don't have to do anything. You just close the valve, put it on, and it's ready to go. The alternative that I had with the previous mod meant that you have to actually open the valve and purge steam out that way, but it was easier to do than with the standard Bellman. I think this is worth it. If you've got the skills to be able to drill a hole in the right spot. You've got to be careful when you're drilling the hole. There's not much room for tolerance. You also, I found I had to make a spring and play with it a little bit just to get it so that it closes at the right time, so that it leaves about a minute of purging. That was a bit fiddly, but it's doable. And it's about, $20 or so for the modification. So if you're game, give it a go. I have had some people say they actually preferred it without the modification. Some people think it's more manageable that way. I don't agree. Some people call this wet steam, that you've got to get rid of the wet steam, but it's really air that's in here that we're talking about. That's the problem. If you only ever do one milk, steam one milk at a time for 1 cup, it's probably not a huge issue because you're probably used to how it works. But particularly if you're steaming one milk after another, you'll find the first one will be over aerated. The ones following that will be probably under aerated. So having either the drilling holes mod and the purging for a short while, or putting the anti-vacuum valve on, just means that it's like a normal espresso machine. It just behaves more predictable and more what you would expect. So there it is. Tell me what you think.